In the land of Canaan, there lived a man named Jacob, who had 12 sons. Among them Joseph, the son of Rachel, was his father's favorite. Jacob loved Joseph so much that he made him a special coat of many colors, a symbol of his deep affection. But this favoritism stirred up jealousy in Joseph's brothers. To make matters worse, Joseph had a series of dreams that hinted at his future greatness. In one dream, Joseph saw himself and his brothers binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly, his sheaf stood upright, while his brothers' sheaves gathered around and bowed to it. In another dream, he saw the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing to him. When he shared these dreams with his family, his brothers' jealousy grew into hatred, and even his father was puzzled by the dreams. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers, who were tending sheep in a distant field. As Joseph approached, his brothers saw him from afar and conspired to kill him. "Here comes the dreamer," they said, mocking him. They planned to throw him into a pit and tell their father that a wild animal had killed him. Reuben, the eldest brother, objected to killing Joseph outright and suggested throwing him into a dry well instead, secretly hoping to rescue him later. The brothers agreed, and as soon as Joseph reached them, they stripped him of his beautiful coat and cast him into the pit. However, as they sat down to eat, a caravan of Ishmaelite traders passed by on their way to Egypt. Judah, one of the brothers, came up with a new plan. "What will we gain if we kill our brother? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites instead." The brothers agreed, and for 20 pieces of silver, they sold Joseph as a slave. They then dipped Joseph's coat in goat's blood and took it back to their father, Jacob, who was heartbroken and believed his beloved son had been devoured by a wild animal. Joseph was taken to Egypt, where he was sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. Though Joseph was a slave, God was with him, and everything he did prospered. Potiphar noticed Joseph's talents and made him the overseer of his entire household. But Joseph's troubles were far from over. Potiphar's wife noticed Joseph's handsome appearance and tried to seduce him. When Joseph refused, out of loyalty to God and Potiphar, she falsely accused him of trying to assault her. Enraged, Potiphar threw Joseph into prison. Even in prison, Joseph found favor with God. The prison warden recognized Joseph's wisdom and leadership, putting him in charge of all the other prisoners. During his time in prison, Joseph met Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, who had been imprisoned for offending the king. They both had troubling dreams, and Joseph, with God's help, interpreted them. He foretold that the cupbearer would be restored to his position, while the baker would be executed. Joseph's interpretations came true, but the cupbearer forgot about him after his release. For 2 more years, Joseph remained in prison, until one day Pharaoh himself had 2 troubling dreams. In one dream, 7 fat cows were eaten by 7 lean cows. In another, 7 healthy ears of grain were swallowed by 7 thin and withered ears. None of Pharaoh's magicians could interpret the dreams, but then the cupbearer remembered Joseph. Joseph was summoned from prison to interpret Pharaoh's dreams. With God's guidance, he revealed that Egypt would experience 7 years of abundant harvest, followed by 7 years of severe famine. Joseph advised Pharaoh to store up grain during the years of plenty to prepare for the coming famine. Impressed by Joseph's wisdom, Pharaoh appointed him as second in command over all of Egypt, giving him the power to prepare the nation for the hard years ahead. As Joseph predicted, the famine struck, not just in Egypt but throughout the surrounding lands, including Canaan, where Jacob and his family lived. When they heard that there was grain in Egypt, Jacob sent his sons to buy food. When they arrived in Egypt, they bowed before Joseph, not realizing that the powerful governor they were facing was their brother. Joseph recognized his brothers instantly, but he did not reveal his identity. Instead, he tested them to see if they had changed. He accused them of being spies and imprisoned one of the brothers, Simeon, while the others returned to Canaan with grain. He also demanded that they bring their youngest brother, Benjamin, the only other son of Rachel, back to Egypt as proof of their honesty. When the brothers returned to Egypt with Benjamin, Joseph arranged a final test. He secretly had his silver cup placed in Benjamin's sack of grain and accused him of theft. When the cup was found, Joseph declared that Benjamin must remain in Egypt as a slave. At this point, Judah stepped forward and pleaded for Benjamin's release, offering himself in Benjamin's place. This act of self-sacrifice moved Joseph deeply. Seeing that his brothers had changed, Joseph could no longer hold back his emotions. He wept and revealed his true identity, saying, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into slavery." His brothers were terrified, expecting Joseph to take revenge. But Joseph reassured them with words that have echoed through the ages. "Do not be afraid. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to save many lives." He forgave them completely and invited them to bring their father and all their families to Egypt, where he could provide for them during the remaining years of famine. Joseph's reunion with his father, Jacob, was a joyful one. Jacob lived in Egypt for 17 more years before passing away, content in knowing that his family was safe and reunited. Through his journey from betrayal to slavery, imprisonment, and finally, exaltation in Egypt, Joseph's faith in God never wavered. He understood that every trial he faced had a purpose, and in the end, it was through his suffering that he was able to save not only his family, but an entire nation. This detailed version of Joseph's story highlights the themes of betrayal, perseverance, divine intervention, and the power of forgiveness. It's a profound narrative about how God can use even the most painful experiences for a greater good. Subscribe to our channel for more Bible stories. Thank you for watching. Remain blessed.